It's going to be a brief. There's going to be a brief video on for the 499 class, and I'm trying to give you a wide background on stuff and related to ESL. And today, I've mentioned some of those sites, and you're looking at them for your exercise this week. It's very important to realize something, and I've downloaded and posted some like the National Clearinghouse for English Language Acquisition, NCELA. What are the legal obligations schools have for English language learners? And we have the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. You got to clarify some things here. Because you have the right to something doesn't mean you're going to get that right. Because English language learners have a right to be in school and have a right to be taught in a manner that will help them be successful doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because of the legalistic nature of our society, we think that there's always an attorney or an organization or a government, state or federal government, that if some issue comes up and a student is not being treated fairly, that we will, we'll be able to pick up the phone and somebody will be down to take care of it. Well, that's just not so. Depending on what group is in control of the government, their willingness to help can disappear. I noticed something small, but it was real. During right after the 2000 election, a lot of materials that were available for free from the Office of, I think it was Office of Civil Rights dealing with ESL, suddenly all those materials, you could only get one copy, you didn't get multiple copies. The government cut out funding, and so for sure I knew the materials were hard to come by. In fact, I have a few hanging around my garage now that I haven't seen for years. And so you realize that if someone cuts the funding, good intentions are just good intentions, So you can't depend on the government to rescue. And you have to realize that if you personally get involved in a big dispute with your school about the treatment of ESL, English learners, we just call them ELs, that probably you're putting your job on the line. Now, no school or no state would say that would be true, but the way to get fair treatment for your students or to get resources for your students, to get funding, whether it's from the school board or the superintendent or the principal for your students, in order to do that, you have to be respected, and they have to be willing to listen to you and willing to make changes. I know of circumstances where, and not long ago at all, where a student of mine was teaching in a school that had ESL spread all over the place, and they were trying to get more materials and another person to help the ESL students. And the school just simply denied it. They said, we don't have funding for that. And that was the school's choice. Did they have funding for that? I have no way to know. But I'm willing to bet that those students were not a high priority. And so they, in effect, were telling this teacher to spread themselves thin and to race from school to school and try to do the best they can, because that's all the school can offer. And the student withdrew she withdrew. I told her I wouldn't teach there because the situation is not going to change. Certainly not going to change for her. And maybe somebody else will come in there, maybe another teacher will make a difference. But that's the facts. So I don't want to put on any kind of false optimism that the rights will be wronged and Batman, Superman are going to show up and help. That's why I want you to look at these and be aware of the Office of Civil Rights. I want you to be aware of Supreme Court decision, Law versus Nichols, but don't go and think you're going to quote those and then magic's going to happen. You have to build up credit and respect with the administration in order to get support. There may be an opportunity for grants or for extra information. There's Teresa, first name, last name starts with an S, and I'll remember it after the video's over. But she's in the Department of Education, Schuster's her name, and she's in the Department of Education dealing with ESL in the state of Nebraska. She will work to help you. And you also have other people. You can call on me. You can, like I can do a lot, but networking is very important. I'm working on an idea now, which I hope I can get more people interested in developing a network of the ESL teachers in the state of Nebraska. I'll just give you this idea, see what you think. It would be a network where teachers would not only help each other, but be aware of each other. But they would also, you could do a Facebook forum. I started on that, but you know what? When you start things like that, it takes a lot of time to manage them, especially at the start of the year. But if one of my ideas was, I know a lot of schools have materials that they don't need anymore, and I don't know what they do with them, but I don't think I think some of them are just thrown away. So I used to collect stuff like that, which is unfortunate because then you get it in your house. But if there was some way to list things like materials that we don't need anymore, kind of like equivalent of a Craigslist for education, and you could have materials available to help teachers, I think that'd be great. Say we don't need these set of readers, but you have a small school and you only need 4 or 5, you could get those. And I'm not aware of any network that shares resources and materials between schools. That's something to think about. Also, I mentioned the thing about the government, depending on who's in office and your local administrators, your local representatives, sometimes they're not in a big hurry to help families. People that, first of all, probably can't vote, don't know how to advocate for themselves, and may actually be afraid to because they're worried about immigration status. These are huge issues. So that's why you, as the ESL teacher, you're not just in this little course I'm having for, it's not just teaching you how to teach. We've got courses for that and we'll cover that. But thinking about what can you do for your students? I wanted to have this advocacy element in here. I may open it up and see what kind of ideas you have. I've told you about my idea. We don't really have a state convention of ESL teachers where we meet, or even a regional one. We have networks within school systems like Lincoln or maybe Grand Island, but school teachers in little schools like, whether it be Holdridge, McCook, North Platte, Valentine. I've talked with people that take my classes, and they pretty much, they do have a good person, Terry, at the State Department. But in general, I can't say that this situation is certainly availability of materials is not as strong as I would like. Years ago, we had a person in charge of migrant education in Nebraska, and bless her soul, she actually passed away on the job. She literally worked on, I think, Labor Day, and she had a heart attack and passed away in the elevator at the State Department of Education. But she actually created a library in Hastings for quite a while, a lending library where teachers could go through and look up things on a catalog, and if they didn't have materials, they could order them from there. They were shipped for free, and then even shipped them back. But it was pretty cool. And oh, my son's calling. I got to stop.